Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please take your seats at this time as the program will begin momentarily.
Coming from the social sciences, I would be clueless in how to design and engineer an airplane. However, I'm sure that with getting the right direction and taking me through the necessary steps, it will get me a long way. For engineers, it might be the same with doing qualitative research. You have no clue where to start, but everyone can learn. In this section, I will introduce you to the first steps in qualitative data analysis. As said, I will take you through a basic step-by-step explanation of how a qualitative data is analyzed. Doing this properly starts of course with a research proposal and defining a solid problem definition. Once this is done, you can continue with preparing for data collection and collecting the data, and lastly, analyzing it. The research proposal is the start of your study. In this plan, you decide, argue, and explain the motivation and relevance of your study, as well as that it gives you direction to your own activities. Setting up a research proposal is therefore a very important step, as you also might have seen in other parts of this course. In your problem statement, formulated in the research proposal, you will define your study, your research questions and aims, and following from that, it enables you to execute your study. In the data preparation step, you will have to ask yourself a lot of questions. What type of data collection will you do? If you choose to do a qualitative study, will you do interviews, observations, focus group, or something else? Which type of data collection fits best with your problem definition and research questions? Then, how will you collect the data, and which questions will be asked? What will be the structure of the interviews or focus groups? In other words, what will be your protocol? Then, it is also important to think about who will participate in your study and why. Also, what amount of participants will you need in order to reach saturation of your topic of study. Please note that in qualitative studies, the sample size does not need to be as large as you would require for quantitative studies. For qualitative studies, there are different requirements, as the data has a different nature and often serves another purpose. Lastly, but not unimportantly, how will you reach the individuals, and where will the data collection take place? If you went through all these preparations, you can continue to collect the data by the method you chose. If you are not experienced yet with qualitative data collection, you could also start with a pilot study or a practice session in order to gain some experience without wasting the time of your participants. You could ask your peers to participate in your focus group or interview and gain valuable feedback on your protocol and your own interview skills. This will help you and build some confidence. Also, think about storing your raw data. Will you record the sessions? Where will you store these recordings? Will you make notes? These are all important things to consider. If it becomes overwhelming, you could also include a second researcher to assist you with the interviews or focus groups. Look for your partner in crime. After you collected the data, it is time to start and process and analyze it. However, doing this from audio files is not very practical. Therefore, the data you collected needs to be transcribed. In other words, your recording needs to be put down into words. You can then use the transcripts to track down and code valuable statements that contain a lot of information. That is, translate them into a general category. This can be done through a stepwise process through open coding, then actual coding, and lastly, selective coding. You will gain some experience with these different types of coding in an example in this section.